The dust swirled like angry ghosts around Sophia Zarelli as she ran through the darkness, her heart pounding against her ribs as if trying to escape her chest. The distant sound of hoofbeats pushed her forward despite the burning in her lungs and the blood trickling from her scraped hands. Arizona Territory, 1883, was no place for a woman alone, but being caught by Victor Blackwood would be far worse than anything the wilderness could inflict upon her. Sophia stumbled as her boot caught on a rock, sending her tumbling down a small embankment. Pain shot through her ankle, but fear propelled her back to her feet. The moonlight cast long shadows across the scrubland outside Prescott, making every cactus and boulder look like a man waiting to capture her. She had fled with nothing but the clothes on her back and her mother's locket around her neck. The silver pendant hung heavy, a reminder of everything she'd lost. "You can't run forever, Sophia." The voice carried over the desert night, causing her blood to freeze. Victor was closer than she'd thought. Desperation gave her renewed strength as she limped toward the outline of a small ranch house in the distance. Lights glowed in the windows, promising safety if she could only reach it in time. The door to the ranch house opened before she even knocked, and Sophia found herself staring into the bluest eyes she'd ever seen. The man before her wore dusty range clothes, a revolver strapped to his hip, and an expression that shifted from surprise to concern as he took in her disheveled appearance. "Please," she gasped, struggling to catch her breath. "He's coming. He's going to take me." The tall cowboy's eyes narrowed as he looked past her to the darkness beyond. "Who's after you, madam?" "A man who says I belong to him, but I don't. I never did." Tears threatened to overwhelm her. "He killed my father. Please, I have nowhere else to go." Without hesitation, the cowboy gently pulled her inside and closed the door. "I'm Isaac Garrett," he said, his voice soft but steady. "You're safe here." The sound of approaching horses made them both turn toward the door. Isaac's jaw tightened as he moved Sophia behind him. "Stay here," he instructed, checking his revolver with practiced ease. "Whatever happens, don't open this door unless you hear my voice." Sophia nodded, clutching her locket as Isaac stepped onto the porch. Through the window, she watched as 3 riders approached, Victor Blackwood's imposing figure clearly visible in the lead. "Evening, gentlemen," Isaac called out, his stance casual but alert. "Something I can help you with." Victor dismounted, his expensive boots raising small clouds of dust as he approached. "I'm looking for my fiancée. She's had a bit of a nervous episode and ran off. Dark hair, pretty little thing. She might be confused or telling wild stories." Isaac's expression remained neutral. "Haven't seen anyone matching that description." Victor's eyes narrowed, shifting toward the house. "Mind if we take a look inside? For her own safety, of course." "I do mind, actually," Isaac replied, his hand resting casually near his holster. "This is private property. You know who I am." Victor's voice dropped dangerously low. "I own half the businesses in Prescott. When I want something, I get it." "That may be," Isaac said evenly, "but this is my land and I decide who steps foot on it." Victor took a menacing step forward. "I'm claiming what's mine. The woman in there belongs to me." Isaac's stance shifted subtly, the casual pose replaced by something more dangerous. "Well, mister, if you want her, you'll have to get through me first." Sophia's heart pounded as she watched the standoff, terrified of what Victor might do but moved by the courage of this stranger who was risking everything for her. Victor stared hard at Isaac, clearly calculating his odds. Finally, he stepped back. "This isn't over, cowboy, not by a long shot." He mounted his horse and gave Isaac one last threatening look. "I'll be back, and next time I won't be asking so nicely." As the 3 riders disappeared into the darkness, Isaac returned inside, finding Sophia trembling near the fireplace. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't know what he's capable of." "I've met men like him before," Isaac replied, stoking the fire. "Bullies who think money and fear give them ownership over others." He turned to her, concern etching lines around his eyes. "Are you hurt? Your ankle looks swollen." Sophia glanced down, noticing the pain she'd pushed aside in her panic. "I fell while running. It's not too bad." Isaac retrieved a basin of water and knelt before her, gently removing her boot. His hands were calloused but gentle as he examined her ankle. "Just a sprain, I think. But you should stay off it for a few days." His eyes met hers. "Which means you're staying here until it heals." "I can't impose," Sophia began. "It's no imposition," Isaac interrupted. "Besides, that man will be watching the roads and the stage station. You wouldn't get far." He wrapped her ankle with a clean bandage. "Now, I believe proper introductions are in order. I'm Isaac Garrett. This is my ranch, small as it is." "Sophia Zarelli," she replied. "And I'm not his fiancée. My father was Victor's business partner. When Papa died suddenly 6 months ago, Victor claimed Papa had promised me to him in marriage to settle debts. But that's a lie. My father would never." Her voice broke. Isaac nodded, not pressing her to continue. "You can have my bed. I'll take the chair by the fire." "I couldn't. I insist," Isaac said with a gentle smile. "My mother raised me better than to let a lady sleep in a chair." As Sophia settled into the narrow but comfortable bed that night, she listened to Isaac moving quietly around the small house. The weight that had pressed on her chest since her father's death seemed to lighten slightly. For the first time in months, she fell asleep without fear dogging her dreams. Morning came with golden light spilling through the curtains. Sophia awoke to the smell of coffee and the sound of quiet movement in the kitchen. She smoothed her rumpled dress as best she could and limped out to find Isaac frying bacon and eggs on the cookstove. "Good morning," he said with a smile that transformed his weathered face. "Hungry?" "Starving," Sophia admitted, realizing she hadn't eaten since noon the previous day. "Can I help?" "Just sit," Isaac said, pulling out a chair at the small wooden table. "Coffee's hot." As they ate, Sophia studied her unlikely protector. Isaac Garrett was perhaps 30, with dark brown hair that curled slightly at his collar, and those startling blue eyes that seemed to take in everything. His face was tanned from working outdoors, with laugh lines at the corners of his eyes that spoke of a man who smiled easily. Despite the circumstances, Sophia felt a flutter in her stomach when those eyes met hers. "Tell me about him," Isaac said finally, refilling her coffee cup. "This man who claims you." Sophia stared into the dark liquid. "Victor Blackwood arrived in Prescott 2 years ago. He bought the bank where my father worked, then offered Papa a partnership in several ventures. Papa was so excited about the opportunities." She twisted a napkin in her fingers. "But the investments started failing. Papa was worried, staying up late reviewing the books. Then he died suddenly. They said it was his heart." "But you don't believe that," Isaac observed. "Papa had never had heart problems," Sophia said. "And that very night, Victor came to our house with papers showing Papa owed him thousands of dollars. He said Papa had promised my hand in marriage to settle the debt." Her voice hardened. "I know that's not true. Papa would never use me as collateral." Isaac nodded slowly. "So you ran?" "Not at first. I tried going to the sheriff, but Victor has him in his pocket. I went to my father's lawyer, but he suddenly couldn't find any of Papa's papers." Sophia's hands trembled. 3 nights ago, Victor came to the house drunk, saying he was tired of waiting. That's when I ran." Isaac's eyes darkened. "He won't touch you, not while I'm breathing." "You don't know him," Sophia warned. "He destroys anyone who stands in his way." "I've faced worse," Isaac said simply. "Fought Apaches and outlaws, survived the war. One crooked businessman doesn't frighten me, After breakfast, Isaac showed Sophia around the small but well-kept ranch house. "It's not much," he said almost apologetically, "but it's paid for. 10 acres, a small herd of cattle, and good water. My father started it and I came back to it after the war." "It's lovely," Sophia said honestly. The house was simple but comfortable, with handcrafted furniture and colorful woven rugs. Through the windows, she could see a corral with several horses, a barn and rolling grassland beyond. Mountains rose in the distance, purple against the clear blue sky. "I have chores to tend to," Isaac said. "Will you be all right here alone?" "Of course," Sophia assured him. "I can prepare lunch while you work." Isaac smiled. "A home-cooked meal would be welcome. Been a while since I've had one." "No wife?" Sophia asked, then blushed at her forwardness. "No," Isaac replied, his eyes holding hers for a moment. "Never found the right woman, or maybe I did, but the timing was wrong." Something like sadness flashed across his face before he turned away. "I won't be far, just yell if you need anything." From the window, Sophia watched Isaac move with easy confidence around the corral, working with a spirited young horse. His patience was evident even from a distance, never rushing or forcing the animal but guiding it firmly and gently. It struck her that he had treated her the same way, offering safety without demands, protection without possession. The contrast with Victor couldn't have been more stark. Where Victor's attention made her feel like prey, Isaac's made her feel seen. Where Victor demanded, Isaac offered. The realization made her cheeks warm. Pushing such thoughts aside, Sophia explored the kitchen, finding ingredients to make a hearty stew. The simple act of cooking brought comfort, a reminder of happier days when she'd prepared meals alongside her mother and father in their modest Prescott home. When Isaac returned at noon, his appreciative smile at the meal she'd prepared warmed her more than it should have. They ate together, conversation flowing easily between them as if they were old friends rather than strangers thrust together by circumstance. "Tell me about yourself," Sophia requested as they washed dishes together. "Where were you before Arizona?" Isaac's hand stilled momentarily in the soapy water. "I was born in Pennsylvania, fought for the Union in the war when I was barely 18. After that, I drifted west, worked as a ranch hand, did some scouting for the Army." His voice grew quieter. "Saw things I wish I hadn't, did things I'm not proud of, but eventually I made my way back here to my father's place." "And your parents, both gone," Isaac said. "Pa died while I was at war. Ma followed a few years later." He handed her a plate to dry. "What about you? Any family besides your father?" Sophia shook her head. "My mother died of fever when I was 16. It was just Papa and me until—" She swallowed hard. "We weren't wealthy, but we were comfortable. Papa was respected in town before Victor came." Isaac's eyes softened with understanding. "You miss him?" "Every day," Sophia admitted. "He taught me everything: how to ride, how to shoot, how to calculate interest rates." She smiled at the memory. "He wanted a son, but got me instead. Said I was better than any boy could have been." "Smart man," Isaac said with a gentle smile. The afternoon passed peacefully, with Sophia resting her ankle while Isaac tended to ranch work. By evening, a comfortable routine had begun to establish itself, as if they'd known each other far longer than a single day. After dinner, they sat before the fire, the crackling flames casting a warm glow over the room. Isaac carved a small wooden figure as Sophia darned a tear in one of his shirts. "I need to go into town tomorrow," Isaac said, breaking the comfortable silence. "We need supplies, and I should find out what Blackwood is up to." Fear gripped Sophia. "It's too dangerous. He'll have men watching." "Which is why you're staying here," Isaac replied firmly. "I'll be careful. Just a quick trip to the general store and maybe a stop at the saloon to listen to gossip." What if he follows you back? What if Isaac reached out, his hand covering hers? Sophia, we can't hide forever. Sooner or later, we need to deal with him. The warmth of his touch sent a tingle up her arm. We? She questioned softly. Yes, we, Isaac confirmed, his eyes serious. Your fight became mine the moment you stepped onto my porch. Tears pricked at Sophia's eyes. Why would you risk yourself for a stranger? Isaac was quiet for a long moment. Because it's the right thing to do, and maybe because you remind me that there are still things in this world worth fighting for. The next morning, Sophia watched anxiously as Isaac saddled his horse, a sturdy buckskin gelding named Jasper. He wore his revolver on his hip and had a rifle in the saddle scabbard. I should be back by mid-afternoon, he told her, checking the cinch one last time. Keep the doors locked. The shotgun is loaded and by the door if you need it. Be careful, Sophia said, her hand reaching for his arm before she could stop herself. Isaac covered her hand with his own. I will. His eyes held hers for a long moment before he swung into the saddle and rode away, looking back once to wave. The hours dragged by, as Sophia kept herself busy cleaning the already tidy house and preparing a stew for dinner. Every sound made her jump: the creak of the windmill, birds landing on the roof, the distant lowing of cattle. She kept the shotgun close, checking the windows often for any sign of riders approaching. When hoofbeats finally sounded in the yard, Sophia peered cautiously through the curtains, relieved to see Isaac dismounting alone. But as he approached the house, she noticed his stiff posture and the tight set of his jaw. What happened? She asked as soon as he entered. Isaac removed his hat, running a hand through his hair. Blackwood's been busy. He's telling everyone you're his fiancée who suffered a breakdown after your father's death, claims you're unwell and need to be brought home for your own safety. His eyes met hers. He's offering a reward for information on your whereabouts. Sophia sank into a chair. No one will believe him. People in town know me. Some might, Isaac said gently. Money has a way of changing memories, and Blackwood owns the bank now. Folks with mortgages won't want to cross him. Did anyone recognize you? Did they suspect you're helping me? Isaac shook his head. Don't think so. I was careful. He hesitated. But there's more. I spoke with an old friend who works at the land office. He says your father's signature on some of those partnership documents looked off. Hope flared in Sophia's chest. You mean they might be forgeries? I knew Papa would never. It's possible, Isaac cautioned, but proving it won't be easy. Blackwood has the sheriff and the judge in his pocket. Then what can we do? Sophia asked, despair threatening to overwhelm her again. Isaac crossed the room to kneel beside her chair, taking her hands in his. We find evidence. My friend mentioned rumors of missing paperwork at the bank after your father died. If we could find those documents. You're talking about breaking into the bank, Sophia realized, her eyes widening. Not exactly, Isaac said with a slight smile. The bank, no, but Blackwood's office above the bank, maybe. That's too dangerous, Sophia protested. If you're caught, it's worth the risk, Isaac interrupted, his gaze intense. Sophia, men like Blackwood don't stop. If we don't stand against him now, he'll keep coming and eventually he'll find you. Sophia studied his face, seeing determination and something else, something that made her heart beat faster. Why are you really doing this, Isaac? The truth. Isaac's eyes held hers. At first, it was simple: a woman in trouble needed help. But now, he took a deep breath. Now I can't bear the thought of him hurting you, of you being forced to marry a man you fear. I've seen too much injustice in this world to stand by and let it happen again. His words wrapped around her like a blanket, warm and secure. In just 2 days, this man had become more important to her than she could have imagined possible. Then we do it together, she said firmly. If we're going to risk everything, we do it together. Isaac looked like he wanted to argue but finally nodded. Together then, but we need a plan. Over dinner, they discussed possibilities, Isaac sketching a rough map of Prescott's Main Street on a piece of paper. Blackwood keeps an office above the bank, Sophia explained. He would often work late there, even after the bank closed. That's where he'd likely keep important documents. How would we get in? Isaac asked. I'm guessing the door at street level would be locked after hours. Sophia's eyes lit up. There's a back staircase that leads directly to the second floor. The bank manager used it to bring documents up to Victor without going through the main lobby. Papa showed it to me once. Isaac nodded thoughtfully. And the office itself would be locked. Yes, but... Sophia hesitated, then reached for her locket, opening it to reveal a small key hidden inside. This is a spare key to Victor's office. Papa had it made when they were partners. I kept it after he died, though I don't know why. Isaac stared at the key, then at Sophia with newfound admiration. You are full of surprises, Sophia Zarelli. They decided to wait 3 days before attempting their plan. In that time, Isaac would make another trip to town to observe patterns when Blackwood typically left his office, which buildings had night guards where the sheriff's deputies patrolled. Those 3 days brought Sophia and Isaac closer in ways neither had anticipated. Working side by side on ranch chores, sharing meals, talking late into the evening, a connection was forming that went beyond their shared purpose. On the second night, as they sat on the porch watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Sophia asked the question that had been on her mind. What will you do after this is over? After Blackwood is dealt with? Isaac was quiet for a long moment. Continue building this place, I suppose. It's good land. Could support a family someday. He glanced at her. What about you? Will you stay in Prescott? Sophia stared at the horizon. I don't know. There are so many memories there, both good and painful, but it's the only home I've known. You could. Isaac began, then stopped himself. You have options, is what I mean. Don't feel like you have to decide everything at once. Sophia turned to look at him, wondering what he had been about to say. The intensity in his eyes made her breath catch. For a heartbeat, she thought he might lean closer, might kiss her. The thought sent a thrill through her body, but Isaac stood abruptly. Getting chilly. We should head inside. That night, Sophia lay awake long after Isaac had settled in the chair by the fire, wondering at the feelings growing inside her. Was it merely gratitude, or something deeper? And if it was deeper, was it wise to pursue such feelings when their future was so uncertain? The morning of their planned excursion into town dawned clear and cool. They would ride in after sunset, timing their arrival for when most businesses had closed, but the saloons were still lively enough to provide cover and distraction. Sophia dressed in the clothes Isaac had purchased on his last trip to town's simple men's attire that would allow her to move freely and attract less attention than her dress. Her hair was tucked beneath a hat, and from a distance, she might pass for a slender young man. Remember, Isaac said as they prepared to leave, if anything goes wrong, we separate and meet back here. No heroics. Sophia nodded, checking that the key was secure in her pocket. Despite her nerves, there was a part of her that felt alive in a way she hadn't since before her father's death. Having purpose, taking action instead of running, it gave her strength. They rode toward Prescott as the sun dipped behind the mountains, taking a roundabout route to avoid being seen approaching town directly. Isaac had chosen horses that wouldn't be recognized, not his buckskin, but 2 plain bays from his small herd. The town came into view, lights twinkling in windows and the sounds of piano music drifting from the saloons. They left their horses at a small livery stable at the edge of town. where Isaac paid the sleepy stable boy extra to ask no questions. Moving through back alleys, they made their way toward the bank. Prescott was busier than usual that evening, with cowboys in town after a cattle drive and miners down from the hills with pockets full of pay. "This works in our favor," Isaac murmured as they paused in the shadow of a building. "More distractions." They reached the narrow alley behind the bank without incident. The back staircase, Sophia had mentioned, was just as she remembered, a wooden structure leading to a small landing and door that provided direct access to the second floor. Isaac went first, testing each step carefully to avoid creaks that might alert anyone inside. Sophia followed, her heart pounding so loudly she was certain it could be heard across town. The door at the top was unlocked. As Sophia had predicted, it was used regularly during business hours and led to a hallway with several offices. Blackwood's was at the end, its door bearing a brass plaque with his name. Sophia's hands trembled as she fitted the key into the lock. For a terrible moment, she feared it wouldn't work, that the locks had been changed, or the key was for something else entirely. But then came a soft click, and the door swung open. The office was opulent compared to the other rooms they'd glimpsed through windows: plush carpet, mahogany desk, leather-bound books lining the walls. It spoke of wealth and power, both of which Blackwood had acquired with suspicious speed. "Where do we start?" Sophia whispered, overwhelmed by the task before them. "File cabinets first," Isaac suggested, moving toward a large oak cabinet against one wall. "Then the desk." They worked in near silence, the only sounds their breathing and the rustle of papers. Isaac found a small oil lamp and lit it, keeping the flame low to avoid being seen from outside. After 20 tense minutes of searching, Sophia was beginning to lose hope. "There's nothing here," she said, closing another drawer. "Just bank records and property deeds." Isaac frowned, scanning the room. "There has to be something. Men like Blackwood always keep insurance, papers they can use against others or to protect themselves." His eyes settled on a painting behind the desk, a garish landscape that seemed at odds with the rest of the decor. That painting. He moved the frame aside, revealing a small wall safe. "Of course," he murmured. "We can't open that," Sophia said, disappointed. "Maybe not," Isaac agreed. "But its existence tells us something important. Whatever Blackwood doesn't want found is in there." A sound from the hallway froze them both. Footsteps, heavy and deliberate, approached the office door. Isaac extinguished the lamp immediately, plunging them into darkness. "Behind the desk," he whispered, pulling Sophia down beside him as the footsteps stopped outside the door. A key rattled in the lock. Sophia's heart seemed to stop as the door swung open, light from a lantern spilling into the room. "I know someone's in here," came Victor Blackwood's voice, cold and confident. The stable boy was quite informative about the couple who arrived after dark. Isaac's hand found Sophia's, squeezing gently a silent message to stay calm. They were trapped, with no way out except past Blackwood himself. "Come out now," Blackwood continued, "and perhaps we can discuss this reasonably." The lantern light moved as he stepped further into the office. "Or I can call the sheriff, and you can explain why you're breaking into a bank after hours. I wonder which the judge would find more compelling, your story or mine." Isaac's grip on Sophia's hand tightened, then released. Before she could stop him, he stood, placing himself between her and Blackwood. "Evening," Isaac said calmly, as if they'd met on the street rather than during a break-in. "Seems we have a problem." Blackwood's eyes narrowed, recognition dawning. "You're the rancher. The one who lied to my face about having seen Sophia." His gaze shifted to where Sophia remained hidden. "Is she here too?" "Of course she is. Come out, my dear. It's time to end this foolishness." Sophia rose slowly, her legs unsteady but her chin held high. The only foolishness was believing you would get away with what you did to my father. Blackwood's laugh was without humor. And what exactly do you think I did? You forged his signature, Sophia accused. You falsified documents to steal his share of the business. And I think you had something to do with his death. Bold accusations, Blackwood said, setting the lantern on the desk. But where's your proof? In that safe, I'd wager, Isaac said, nodding toward the wall behind Blackwood. Men like you always keep leverage. A flicker of unease crossed Blackwood's face. You're trespassing, both of you. I could have you arrested right now. You could, Isaac agreed, but that would mean a trial, public scrutiny. Questions about why Sophia was so desperate to escape marrying you that she'd risk breaking into your office. His voice hardened. Questions about how a newcomer to Prescott acquired so much property so quickly after his partner's convenient death. Blackwood's hand moved toward his coat, but Isaac was faster. His revolver appeared as if by magic, pointed steadily at Blackwood's chest. Don't, Isaac warned quietly. Blackwood froze, then slowly raised his hands. You won't shoot me, not here, not like this. You're not a killer. You don't know what I am, Isaac replied, his voice flat. I've killed men before. Some deserved it more than others. Where would you fall on that scale, I wonder? Sophia moved to the safe, her eyes never leaving Blackwood. Open it, she demanded. Or what? Blackwood sneered. Your cowboy will shoot me. In the middle of town. He'd hang before sunrise. Open it, Isaac repeated, or we walk out of here and straight to the territorial governor in Tucson with what we already know. Your choice. Something in Isaac's tone must have convinced Blackwood he was serious. With a curse, he turned to the safe, blocking the combination with his body as he worked the dial. The door swung open with a soft creak. Step back, Isaac instructed, keeping the gun trained on Blackwood as Sophia approached the safe. Inside were stacks of papers, a leather pouch that clinked with the sound of coins, and a small journal bound in red leather. Sophia's hands trembled as she lifted the journal, recognizing her father's handwriting immediately. Papa's private ledger, she breathed. He recorded everything in this. She flipped through the pages, her eyes widening. It's all here, the real terms of their partnership, notes about discrepancies he'd found, his suspicions about missing funds. She looked up at Blackwood, her eyes blazing. He knew. He was building a case against you. Blackwood's face had gone pale. That proves nothing. It proves my father never agreed to any marriage arrangement, Sophia countered, continuing to scan the pages. And it raises serious questions about the partnerships you claim to have. She stopped suddenly, her finger marking a passage. Here Papa writes that he confronted you the night before he died, that he was going to the Territorial Bank Examiner the next morning. Isaac's expression hardened. Convenient timing for his heart to give out, wouldn't you say? You can't prove anything, Blackwood insisted, though his confidence was clearly shaken. Maybe not, Isaac agreed, but this journal gives us enough to warrant an investigation. The governor has been looking for an excuse to clean up corruption in the territory. This would give him a fine place to start. Sophia gathered the journal and several other documents from the safe. We're leaving now, she said with a calm she didn't entirely feel, and you're going to let us go. And if I don't, Blackwood challenged. Then I'll be forced to defend ourselves, Isaac said simply. And unlike you, I don't miss what I aim at. They backed toward the door, Isaac never lowering his weapon. Sophia's mind raced with the implications of what they'd found. It wasn't definitive proof of murder, but it was enough to destroy Blackwood's credibility and possibly send him to prison for fraud. This isn't over, Blackwood called as they reached the hallway. You'll never be safe, not in Prescott, not anywhere in the territory. Isaac paused in the doorway. Make one move against Sophia, one threat, one attempt to follow us, and I'll consider it a mortal insult. I trust I'm making myself clear. The deadly quiet in his voice sent a chill down Sophia's spine, though the threat wasn't directed at her. Without waiting for Blackwood's response, they hurried down the back stairs and into the alley, moving quickly toward the livery stable. He'll come after us, Sophia said as they retrieved their horses. He can't afford not to. I'm counting on it, Isaac replied grimly, helping her mount. But not tonight. He'll need time to weigh his options, figure out how much damage that journal can do. They rode hard, taking a different route back to the ranch than the one they'd come by. Neither spoke until they were miles from town, the only sounds the steady rhythm of hoofbeats and their own breathing. What now? Sophia finally asked as they slowed the horses to a walk. Isaac was silent for a moment, his face thoughtful in the moonlight. We have evidence, but not enough to ensure Blackwood faces justice for your father's death. We need more. Where will we find it? We can't go back to his office. No, Isaac agreed, but we don't need to. The journal mentions your father confronting Blackwood the night he died. Someone might have seen them together, a servant, a neighbor, someone at the bank. Hope flickered in Sophia's chest. Mrs. Henderson, she said suddenly. Our neighbor. She was always watching from her window. Papa used to joke that she knew more about our comings and goings than we did. Then we speak to Mrs. Henderson, Isaac decided. Tomorrow. They reached the ranch well after midnight, exhausted but triumphant. As they cared for the horses, Sophia found herself watching Isaac, the gentle way he handled the animals, the strength in his hands, the determined set of his jaw. In the space of a few days, he had become her protector, her partner, her friend. And perhaps something more. Inside the house, they spread the documents on the table, examining each one by lamplight. The journal was the most valuable find, page after page of her father's meticulous notes, documenting Blackwood's gradual takeover of their business interests through manipulation and likely forgery. He was building a case, Sophia said softly, tracing her father's familiar handwriting. He knew something was wrong and was gathering evidence, which gave Blackwood a powerful motive to silence him, Isaac finished, his expression grim. As the night deepened, exhaustion finally overtook them. Sophia found herself nodding off at the table, jerking awake when her head drooped. You need sleep, Isaac said gently. Tomorrow will be another long day. Sophia didn't argue, too tired to protest as Isaac guided her to the bedroom. But at the door, she turned to face him, suddenly needing to express the gratitude and other, more complex emotions swirling inside her. Isaac, she began, but the words caught in her throat. He stood close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from his body, see the flecks of darker blue in his eyes. For a breathless moment, neither moved. Then Isaac stepped back slightly, breaking the spell. Get some rest, Sophia, he said softly. We both should. But as she settled into bed, Sophia knew rest would be elusive. Not because of fear or worry about Blackwood, but because of the feelings growing for the quiet, honorable man sleeping in the chair by the fire. Morning brought new determination. Over breakfast, they formulated a plan to visit Mrs. Henderson that afternoon. It would be risky returning to Sophia's neighborhood, but the elderly neighbor might provide the missing piece they needed. We'll need to be careful, Isaac cautioned. Blackwood will have men watching your house and possibly your neighbors. Sophia nodded, pouring more coffee. Mrs. Henderson's house connects to ours through the back gardens. There's a gate in the fence that Papa installed so she could visit without walking around to the street. We could approach from behind, through the wash that runs behind the properties. Smart, Isaac approved. If we time it right, we can be in and out without being seen from the street. As they prepared to leave, Sophia noticed Isaac checking and loading extra ammunition for his revolver and rifle. The sight made the danger they faced suddenly more real. "Isaac," she said quietly, "if anything happens to me, nothing's going to happen to you," he interrupted firmly. "But if it does," she persisted, "I want you to know that these past days—" She took a deep breath. "They've meant everything to me. You've given me back my courage when I thought it was gone forever." Isaac set down the rifle he'd been checking, crossing to where she stood. Without hesitation, he took her hands in his. "Sophia Zarelli," he said, his voice husky with emotion, "meeting you has turned my world upside down in the best possible way. I've lived alone so long I'd forgotten what it felt like to care this deeply about another person's happiness." His eyes searched hers. "Whatever happens, I don't regret a moment of it." The tenderness in his gaze made her breath catch. Slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wished, Isaac leaned forward and pressed his lips to hers. The kiss was gentle at first, almost tentative, but deepened as Sophia responded, her hands moving to his shoulders. Heat bloomed between them, a connection that transcended the few days they'd known each other. When they finally parted, both were breathless. "I've wanted to do that since the moment you stood up to Blackwood on your porch," Sophia admitted. Her cheeks flushed. Isaac's smile transformed his face, erasing the worry lines that had been present since they'd returned from town. "I've wanted to do that since you made biscuits for breakfast your first morning here." They both laughed, the tension of the moment broken but the connection between them stronger than ever. With renewed purpose, they finished their preparations and set off toward Prescott, taking a circuitous route that would bring them to the wash behind Sophia's neighborhood without passing through the main part of town. The afternoon sun beat down as they left their horses hidden in a stand of cottonwoods near the wash and proceeded on foot. Sophia led the way, familiar with every bend in the dry stream bed from childhood explorations. "There," she whispered finally, pointing to a modest white house visible through the trees. "That's Mrs. Henderson's place, and that's ours next door." Isaac surveyed the area carefully. "I don't see anyone watching, but that doesn't mean they're not there. Let's move quickly." They scrambled up the embankment and crossed Mrs. Henderson's small vegetable garden, keeping low to avoid being seen from the street. Sophia knocked softly at the back door, praying the elderly woman was home and alone. After a moment that seemed to stretch eternally, the door opened a crack, revealing a weathered face beneath a cap of silver hair. Mrs. Henderson's eyes widened at the sight of Sophia. "Good heavens, child!" she exclaimed in a hushed voice, quickly ushering them inside. "The whole town's been looking for you, I know," Sophia said, embracing the older woman. "Mrs. Henderson, this is Isaac Garrett. He's been helping me." The old woman's sharp eyes assessed Isaac, apparently approving of what she saw. "Well, come sit down and tell me what this is all about." "Mr. Blackwood has been telling everyone you've had some kind of breakdown." "That's not true," Sophia said firmly. "Mrs. Henderson, we need your help. Do you remember the night my father died?" The woman's face softened with sadness. "Of course, dear. Such a terrible shock." "Did you happen to see anyone visit our house that evening?" Isaac asked gently. "Anyone at all?" Mrs. Henderson's brow furrowed in concentration. "As a matter of fact, I did. Mr. Blackwood arrived quite late past 9, I believe. I remember because I was closing my curtains for the night when I saw him stride up to your door." Sophia and Isaac exchanged a significant look. "Did you see him leave?" Sophia pressed. "Yes, about an hour later he seemed agitated, walking quickly, looking over his shoulder." Mrs. Henderson leaned closer. "I thought it odd at the time, but then when I heard about your father the next morning—" "Did you tell the sheriff about this?" Isaac asked. Mrs. Henderson snorted. "I tried." Sheriff Dawson said it was natural for a business partner to visit, especially with your father not feeling well. Said I was being a nosy old woman. Her eyes narrowed. But there was something else. The next day, while everyone was at your father's house paying respects, I saw Mr. Blackwood return. He went inside for only a few minutes, then left carrying what looked like a small box or case. He went into our house during the gathering, Sophia asked, shocked. I never saw him. You were surrounded by well-wishers in the parlor, Mrs. Henderson explained. He came to the back door and left the same way. Isaac looked thoughtful. Would you be willing to make a sworn statement about what you saw? It could be dangerous. Blackwood has influence in town. The elderly woman straightened her shoulders. Young man, I've lived in this town for 40 years. I knew Sophia's grandparents. If that man had something to do with Charles Zarelli's death, wild horses couldn't stop me from telling what I know. Relief washed over Sophia. With Mrs. Henderson's testimony, her father's journal, and the documents they'd taken from the safe, they had enough to warrant a serious investigation. We need to get this information to someone who can't be bought, Isaac said. The territorial governor or a federal marshal. Marshal Davis, Mrs. Henderson suggested promptly. He's in town investigating that stage robbery last month, staying at the Grand Hotel. He answers to Washington, not local authorities. Isaac nodded approvingly. Perfect. Can you get a message to him? Ask him to meet us somewhere private. Consider it done, the older woman said with determination. My nephew works at the hotel. He'll deliver a note without anyone being the wiser. They quickly composed a message, careful not to include specific details but urgent enough to secure the marshal's interest. Mrs. Henderson assured them she would have it delivered immediately and suggested they meet the marshal at her sister's vacant house on the outskirts of town that evening. As they prepared to leave, Sophia impulsively hugged the older woman. Thank you for believing me, for believing in Papa. Mrs. Henderson patted her cheek affectionately. Your father was a good man, Sophia. He deserves justice. Her gaze shifted to Isaac. And you, young man, take care of her. She's special. I know, Isaac replied, his eyes meeting Sophia's with a warmth that made her heart skip. Believe me, I know. They left as carefully as they had arrived, working their way back to the wash and their waiting horses without being spotted. As they rode toward the meeting place, Sophia felt a cautious hope growing. For the first time since her father's death, it seemed possible that the truth would come to light, that Victor Blackwood might finally face consequences for his actions. The vacant house belonged to Mrs. Henderson's sister, who had gone to San Francisco for the winter. It stood alone on a small rise, offering a clear view of the approaching road while providing the privacy they needed. They arrived as the sun was setting, securing their horses behind the house and entering through the kitchen door with the key Mrs. Henderson had provided. The house was simply furnished but clean, with sheets covering the larger pieces of furniture. Now we wait, Isaac said, checking his pocket watch. The marshal should be here within the hour if he received our message. Sophia paced nervously, unable to settle. So much depended on this meeting: her future, her father's legacy, perhaps even justice for his death. And beyond that, there was the unspoken question of what would happen between her and Isaac once this was over. As if reading her thoughts, Isaac moved to her side, gently taking her hand to still her pacing. Whatever happens tonight, he said softly, I want you to know something. Sophia looked up at him, struck again by the honesty in his blue eyes. What? These past days with you have woken something in me I thought was long dead. The ability to care, to hope for a future beyond just surviving. His hand tightened around hers. I don't know what tomorrow brings, but I know I want to face it with you beside me. Tears pricked at Sophia's eyes. Isaac, The sound of approaching hoofbeats interrupted whatever she might have said. Isaac moved quickly to the window, peering cautiously through the curtains. "Single rider," he reported. "Moving slowly. Could be the marshal." They waited tensely as the rider dismounted and approached the house. A firm knock sounded at the door. "Marshal Davis," Isaac called without opening it. "That's right," came a deep voice from outside. "Mrs. Henderson's nephew delivered your message, said it was urgent." Isaac exchanged a look with Sophia, then carefully opened the door, keeping his body positioned to shield her if necessary. The man on the porch was tall and lean, with a weathered face and alert eyes that missed nothing. The federal marshal's badge gleamed on his chest. "Thank you for coming," Isaac said, stepping aside to allow the marshal entry. "I'm Isaac Garrett. This is Sophia Zarelli." Recognition flashed in the marshal's eyes at Sophia's name. "The woman Blackwood's been hunting." It wasn't a question. "Half the town's talking about your disappearance, madam." "I didn't disappear," Sophia said firmly. "I escaped. Marshal Davis, Victor Blackwood, has been lying about his relationship with me and with my late father. We have evidence suggesting he may have been involved in my father's death." The marshal's expression remained neutral, but his interest was clearly piqued. "That's a serious accusation. What kind of evidence?" They showed him the journal and documents, explaining their significance and adding Mrs. Henderson's account of the night Charles Zarelli died. Davis listened without interruption, occasionally asking for clarification, but offering no opinion when they finished. He was silent for a long moment, thumbing through the journal one more time. "This isn't proof of murder," he finally said, "but it's enough to warrant investigation into fraud and document forgery." He looked up at them. "You understand that taking these documents from Blackwood's office was illegal?" "We had no choice," Sophia said. "The local sheriff is in Blackwood's pocket. We needed evidence that couldn't be destroyed or denied." Davis nodded thoughtfully. "I believe you, Miss Zarelli. And I've heard rumors about Blackwood from other sources, suggestions that his business practices wouldn't stand up to scrutiny." He closed the journal and handed it back to Sophia. "I'll need formal statements from both of you and from Mrs. Henderson, and I'll need to telegraph the governor for authorization to expand my investigation beyond the stage robbery." Relief washed over Sophia. "Then you'll help us." "I uphold the law, Miss Zarelli," Davis said simply. "If Blackwood has broken it, he'll answer for it. But this won't be resolved overnight. Even with this evidence, building a case will take time." "What about Sophia's safety in the meantime?" Isaac asked, his concern evident. "Blackwood won't stop coming after her." The marshal considered this. "I can offer protection while you're giving statements, but my authority is limited. My recommendation: leave the territory until this is resolved. Go to California, perhaps, or north to Colorado." The suggestion hit Sophia like a physical blow. Leave Prescott, the only home she'd ever known. But even as doubt clouded her mind, another thought emerged: that home wasn't necessarily a place. Sometimes it was a person. Her eyes found Isaac's, and the question in them was answered before it was asked. He would go with her if she wanted. The realization warmed her from within. "We'll consider it," Isaac told the marshal. "In the meantime, when can we give our statements?" "Tomorrow morning," Davis decided. "My office at the courthouse. I'll arrange for privacy." He rose to leave, then paused. "Stay vigilant tonight. Blackwood has eyes everywhere in town." After the marshal departed, Sophia and Isaac discussed their options. They could return to Isaac's ranch for the night, but the road would be dangerous in darkness. Staying at the empty house seemed safer with its clear view of approaching riders. "We'll leave at first light," Isaac decided. "Give our statements to the marshal, then decide our next move." As night deepened around the small house, they made a simple meal from provisions they'd brought. neither speaking much but finding comfort in the other's presence. The unspoken emotions between them hung in the air, amplified by the knowledge that they stood at a crossroads. Later, as Sophia prepared to sleep in one of the bedrooms while Isaac took the first watch, she found herself unable to leave his side. He sat by the window, his profile outlined by moonlight, a man who had risked everything for her without hesitation. "Isaac," she said softly, moving to stand beside his chair. "Why did you really help me that first night? You could have turned me away, avoided all this danger." He was quiet for a moment, his eyes on the darkened landscape beyond the window. "During the war," he finally said, "I saw what happens when good people stand aside and let evil men have their way. I promised myself I'd never be that person, the one who looks the other way." He turned to her, his face serious. "But that's not the whole truth." "What is then?" Sophia asked, her heart beating faster. "The moment I saw you on my porch, terrified but still standing tall, still fighting, something inside me recognized something in you." His voice grew softer. "It was like finding a piece of myself I didn't know was missing." Sophia knelt beside his chair, taking his hands in hers. "I felt it too," she admitted. "From that first night when you faced Victor without flinching, you made me feel safe in a way I hadn't since before Papa died." Isaac reached out, his fingers gently tracing the line of her jaw. "Sophia Zarelli, I think I've been waiting for you my whole life without knowing it." The simple, heartfelt declaration broke something open inside her. Without hesitation, Sophia leaned forward and kissed him, pouring all her gratitude, admiration, and growing love into the connection between them. When they finally parted, Isaac's eyes were dark with emotion. "Stay with me tonight," he whispered. "Not for anything but to be close. I don't want to be apart from you, not even for a few hours." Sophia nodded, settling beside him on the small sofa near the window. With her head resting against his shoulder and his arm around her, she felt a peace that transcended their uncertain circumstances. Whatever tomorrow brought, they would face it together. Dawn broke with golden light spilling across the horizon. They had alternated watches through the night, each getting some rest, and now prepared to ride to town for their meeting with Marshal Davis. "Are you nervous?" Isaac asked as they saddled the horses. "A little," Sophia admitted, "but more determined than afraid. For the first time since Papa died, I feel like I'm doing something that matters, something that honors him." Isaac's smile was warm with pride. "He'd be proud of you, Sophia. I certainly am." They rode toward Prescott as the town was coming to life, taking the main road this time rather than sneaking in. Sophia kept her hat pulled low, but she refused to hide completely. She was done running. The courthouse stood at the center of town, an imposing stone building that housed the territorial offices, courtrooms, and jail. Marshal Davis met them at a side entrance, quickly escorting them to a small office where a clerk was prepared to take their statements. For the next 2 hours, they recounted everything from Charles Zarelli's initial partnership with Blackwood to his death, Sophia's subsequent harassment, and their discovery of the incriminating documents. The clerk's pen scratched steadily across page after page as Davis occasionally asked clarifying questions. "That should do it," the marshal finally said as the clerk gathered the completed statements. "I'll have these dispatched to the governor today, along with my recommendation for a full investigation." He fixed them both with a serious look. "Blackwood will know you've been here. My advice about leaving town stands." "We understand," Isaac said, rising to shake the marshal's hand. "Thank you for your help." As they prepared to leave through the same side door, Davis added, "I've asked Mrs. Henderson to come in this afternoon for her statement. I'll have a deputy escort her home afterward, just to be safe." The thought of the kind elderly woman potentially facing Blackwood's wrath made Sophia's stomach clench, but she took comfort in the marshal's precautions. Mrs. Henderson was brave, but not foolish. Outside, the day had warmed considerably, the streets busy with morning commerce. As they walked toward their horses, Sophia felt a prickling sensation between her shoulder blades, the unmistakable feeling of being watched. "Isaac," she murmured, resisting the urge to look around. "I think someone's following us." Without breaking stride, Isaac casually draped his arm around her shoulders, using the motion to scan the street behind them. "Two men," he confirmed quietly. "Near the Mercantile, Blackwood's men most likely." "What do we do?" Sophia asked, fighting to keep her voice steady. "Act normal." "We'll get to the horses and ride out as planned." Isaac's voice was calm, but she felt the tension in his body. "If they make a move, be ready to run. Get to your horse and don't wait for me." "I won't leave you," Sophia protested. "Yes, you will," Isaac said firmly. "I can handle myself. Your safety is what matters." They reached the hitching post where their horses waited, untying the reins with deliberate casualness. Sophia was about to mount when a familiar voice froze her in place. "Miss Zarelli, what a pleasant surprise." Victor Blackwood stood directly across the street, flanked by 4 men including the town's deputy sheriff. His expression was pleasantly neutral, but his eyes were cold with fury. Isaac moved immediately to stand between Sophia and Blackwood, his hand resting near his revolver. "This isn't the time or place, Blackwood," he said evenly. Blackwood smiled thinly. "On the contrary, this is exactly the right time. Deputy Jones here has some questions about a break-in at my office. Valuable documents were stolen." His gaze shifted to Sophia. "And of course, I've been terribly worried about my fiancée's well-being." The deputy stepped forward, looking uncomfortable but determined. "Miss Zarelli, Mr. Garrett, I need you both to come with me to the sheriff's office." "On what charge?" Isaac demanded. "Theft, breaking and entering, and possible kidnapping," the deputy replied, not meeting Isaac's eyes. "Mr. Blackwood has sworn out a complaint." Sophia felt a flare of panic, quickly suppressed. "Deputy Jones, we've just given statements to Marshal Davis about Mr. Blackwood's fraudulent business practices and possible involvement in my father's death. I suggest you speak with the marshal before taking any action." The deputy hesitated, clearly caught between conflicting authorities. Blackwood's face darkened with anger. "The marshal has no jurisdiction over local matters," he snapped. "This is about theft and a disturbed young woman's flight from her family." "I'm not his family," Sophia said clearly, her voice carrying to the small crowd that had begun to gather. "And I'm not disturbed. Victor Blackwood has been lying about his relationship with me and with my late father. We have evidence." "That you stole from my private office," Blackwood interrupted. "Deputy, do your duty." The standoff might have continued, but at that moment, Marshal Davis emerged from the courthouse, taking in the scene with a practiced eye. He approached deliberately, his badge gleaming in the morning sun. "Is there a problem here?" he asked mildly, though his eyes were sharp. The deputy looked relieved at the intervention of a higher authority. "Marshal, Mr. Blackwood has filed complaints against Miss Zarelli and Mr. Garrett for theft and breaking and entering." Davis nodded thoughtfully. "I see. And I'm currently investigating Mr. Blackwood for fraud, document forgery, and possible murder." He turned to Blackwood, whose face had gone pale. "Would you like to discuss this publicly, Mr. Blackwood? I'd be happy to share the details of Miss Zarelli's statement with everyone present." The threat was clear. Blackwood's carefully constructed reputation would not survive such revelations, regardless of any eventual legal outcome. "This isn't over," Blackwood said, his voice low with suppressed rage. "You're exceeding your authority, Marshal." Perhaps, Davis agreed easily. But by this afternoon, I'll have a telegram from the governor authorizing a full investigation. Now, I suggest you and your men disperse before I decide to question you all officially. He turned to the deputy. Any local charges can wait until my investigation is complete. I trust that's clear. The deputy nodded, clearly relieved to be off the hook for making a difficult decision. Yes, sir. Very clear. Blackwood stood rigid with fury, but he was shrewd enough to recognize defeat at least temporarily. With a curt nod to his men, he turned and walked away, his back stiff with barely contained rage. When he was out of earshot, Marshal Davis turned to Sophia and Isaac. That was closer than I'd like. He's desperate, which makes him dangerous. I strongly advise you both to leave town immediately. He lowered his voice. Take the North Road. I have men watching the other routes. Thank you, Marshal, Isaac said sincerely. We owe you. Davis shook his head. You owe me nothing. Just stay alive until I can build this case properly. He tipped his hat to Sophia. Safe travels, Miss Zarelli. As the marshal walked away, Sophia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. Blackwood was not defeated, but for the first time, he was on the defensive rather than controlling the situation. It was a beginning. They mounted quickly, aware of curious eyes still watching from the boardwalks and storefronts. Isaac led the way toward the North Road, setting a brisk pace that put distance between them and the town without appearing to flee. Where are we going? Sophia asked once they were well beyond the town limits. I've been thinking about that, Isaac replied. The ranch isn't safe. It's too isolated, too easy to surround. We need somewhere with people around, but not too public. He glanced at her. I have a friend who runs a trading post near the Colorado border. We'd be welcome there while we wait for news from the marshal. How long would that take? Sophia asked, trying to imagine what lay ahead. A few weeks, maybe longer. Isaac's expression softened. I know it's not ideal, being away from home with an uncertain future. Home is where you make it, Sophia said, surprising herself with the certainty she felt. And right now I think I could make one anywhere as long as… She trailed off, suddenly shy. As long as what? Isaac prompted gently. As long as you're there, Sophia finished, her cheeks warming but her gaze steady. The smile that broke across Isaac's face was like sunrise after the longest night. In that case, he said, reaching across to take her hand, I think we'll find our way just fine. They rode north through the day, stopping only to rest the horses and eat a quick meal from their provisions. By nightfall, they had covered nearly 30 miles, following a trail that wound through pine-covered hills and high meadows. Isaac led them to a small cabin he knew of, a lined shack used by cattlemen during roundup, but empty this time of year. It was rudimentary but offered shelter and privacy for the night. As they settled by a small fire, Sophia found herself contemplating the turns her life had taken. Just over a week ago, she had been trapped in a nightmare, seeing no way out. Now, despite the continuing danger, she felt something she hadn't experienced in months: hope. What are you thinking? Isaac asked, noticing her pensive expression. That sometimes the worst moments in our lives lead us to the best ones, she replied honestly. If my father hadn't died, if Victor hadn't threatened me, I would never have run, never have found you. Isaac moved to sit beside her, taking her hand in his. I've been alone a long time, he said quietly. Never thought I'd find someone who made me want to be more than I am. Then you appeared on my porch, and suddenly everything changed. You were already more than enough, Sophia said, leaning against his shoulder. You just needed someone to see it. They sat in comfortable silence, watching the flames dance. Tomorrow would bring more miles, more challenges, but tonight there was peace in the simple act of being together. Their journey north continued for 5 days, following back trails and camping under the stars. They avoided towns and settlements where Blackwood might have contacts, making steady progress toward the Colorado border. With each mile, Sophia felt the invisible bonds of fear loosening their hold on her heart. On the evening of the 5th day, they crested a ridge and saw their destination spread below them, a cluster of buildings nestled in a green valley beside a rushing river. Smoke rose lazily from several chimneys, and the fading sunlight glinted off a metal roof. "Red Rock Trading Post," Isaac announced. "My friend Samuel runs it with his wife, Martha. They're good people." As they rode down into the valley, Sophia felt a mixture of relief and trepidation. This place would be their home for the coming weeks, perhaps longer if the investigation dragged on. Yet there was comfort in knowing they would no longer be constantly on the move, looking over their shoulders. The trading post proved to be larger than it had appeared from a distance, a main building constructed of sturdy logs with a wide porch, several outbuildings, and a small stable. An older man with a salt and pepper beard was splitting wood in the yard but set down his axe when he spotted them approaching. "Isaac Garrett, as I live and breathe," he called, striding forward with a broad smile. "Been what, 3 years?" "Too long, Sam," Isaac agreed, dismounting and clasping the man's hand warmly. "This is Sophia Zarelli. We're in need of shelter for a while if you can spare it." Samuel's sharp eyes took in Sophia's travel-worn appearance and the caution in Isaac's stance. "Trouble?" he asked simply. "Some," Isaac admitted. "I'll explain everything, but not out here." "Say no more," Samuel said with a nod. "Martha will be pleased to have company, especially another woman. She gets tired of just me and the occasional trader for conversation." Martha proved to be a stout, cheerful woman with bright eyes and capable hands. She welcomed Sophia without question, immediately setting about preparing hot baths and a hearty meal while the men saw to the horses. Later, as they sat around the kitchen table enjoying venison stew and fresh bread, Isaac explained their situation, Blackwood's schemes, Charles Zarelli's suspicious death, their discovery of evidence, and Marshall Davis's investigation. Samuel and Martha listened without interruption, their expressions growing increasingly grave. "You're welcome to stay as long as you need," Samuel said when Isaac had finished. "We've got a cabin out back that we use for special guests. It's small but private." "And I could use help around here," Martha added, smiling at Sophia. "Trading's been good lately, and these old hands could use some younger ones to share the work." "We'd be happy to earn our keep," Sophia said gratefully, touched by their immediate acceptance. That night, settled in the small but comfortable cabin behind the trading post, Sophia and Isaac discussed their future for the first time without the immediate pressure of pursuit hanging over them. "What will you do when this is over?" Isaac asked as they sat side by side on the cabin's small porch, watching stars appear in the darkening sky. "Will you return to Prescott?" Sophia considered the question carefully. "I don't know," she admitted. "There are memories there, good ones of my parents, our home, but also painful ones now." She glanced at him. "What about you? Will you go back to your ranch?" Isaac was quiet for a moment. "I've been thinking about that. The ranch is good land, but it's small, limited in what it can become." He took her hand, his expression earnest. "But there's land available up here, good grazing land with water rights. A man could build something substantial." Hope fluttered in Sophia's chest. "A man could," she agreed softly, "or perhaps a man and a woman together." Isaac's smile was slow and warm. "That would be my preference." He brought her hand to his lips. "Sophia Zarelli, I know we've known each other only a short time, but I can't imagine my life without you in it now. When this is all over, would you consider building a life with me, whether here or in Prescott or wherever you want to go?" Tears pricked at Sophia's eyes, but they were tears of joy, not sorrow. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I would. I think perhaps I've been waiting for you my whole life, Isaac Garrett, without knowing it." Their kiss beneath the stars sealed a promise, not just for the present danger they faced together, but for all the years that might follow. The weeks at Red Rock Trading Post fell into a pleasant rhythm. Sophia helped Martha with the store, quickly learning the intricacies of trade with the diverse clientele: settlers, miners, Native Americans from nearby reservations, and the occasional military patrol. Her natural intelligence and her father's teachings about business served her well. Isaac worked with Samuel, repairing outbuildings, helping with hunting, and occasionally guiding travelers through the difficult mountain passes. In the evenings, the four of them often sat on the trading post's wide porch, sharing stories and watching the sunset paint the distant peaks in gold and crimson. Despite the peace they found, Isaac and Sophia remained vigilant. They knew Blackwood would not simply accept defeat, especially with his reputation and freedom at stake. Each traveler who arrived at the post was carefully observed before being welcomed. A month passed with no word from Marshal Davis. Then, on a crisp autumn morning, a rider approached the trading post. Isaac and Samuel were repairing the corral fence when they spotted him, a young man in a dusty uniform that marked him as a courier. "I'm looking for Isaac Garrett or Sophia Zarelli," he announced, pulling a sealed envelope from his saddlebag. "Message from Marshal Davis in Prescott." Sophia hurried from the store at the sound of her name, her heart pounding with anticipation and fear. Isaac took the envelope, thanked the courier, and broke the seal as Sophia reached his side. They read the message together, their shoulders touching. Investigation proceeding. Evidence compelling. Blackwood indicted by territorial grand jury for fraud, forgery, conspiracy. Murder charge pending further evidence. Blackwood disappeared before arrest. Believed headed north with 3 men. Exercise extreme caution. Will send word when apprehended. Davis. Sophia's blood ran cold at the words. "He's coming after us." Isaac's arm went around her shoulders protectively. "He's desperate now. A desperate man is dangerous, but he also makes mistakes." Samuel read the message over their shoulders and nodded grimly. "We'll be ready if he shows up here. Trading post like this, we're well armed and have friends nearby." That night, they developed a plan. Runners were sent to nearby settlements and ranches, alerting them to watch for Blackwood and his men. The trading post itself was subtly fortified, with additional weapons placed strategically and sightlines cleared. "You think he knows we're here?" Sophia asked as she and Isaac checked the ammunition for the rifles Samuel had provided. "Possibly," Isaac admitted. "If he's been asking questions along the roads north from Prescott, someone might have seen us or heard about 2 riders matching our description." The waiting was the hardest part. Each day brought new travelers to the trading post, and each unknown face caused Sophia's heart to skip until identity and purpose were confirmed. Isaac never let her out of his sight when strangers were present, his protective instincts on high alert. A week passed with no sign of Blackwood. Then another. The first snows dusted the high peaks, a reminder that winter would soon make travel difficult. Sophia began to hope that perhaps Blackwood had gone elsewhere, fleeing to Mexico or California to escape justice. Then, on a misty morning when the valley was shrouded in fog, Samuel returned from an early hunting trip with grave news. "Riders camped about 5 miles south," he reported, stamping snow from his boots in the trading post kitchen. 4 men, keeping to themselves. One matches Blackwood's description: tall, well-dressed despite trail conditions. They asked if I'd seen a young couple coming through recently. Isaac's expression hardened. "What did you tell them?" "That we get all kinds through here and I don't keep track," Samuel replied. "Said they might try the settlement 20 miles north if they're looking for someone specific. They'll know that's a lie once they ask around and learn this is the only trading post for 50 miles, Isaac said grimly. "They'll be here soon." Sophia felt fear grip her chest, but alongside it rose a fierce determination. She was done running, done hiding. "Then we'll be ready," she said, her voice steadier than she felt. They prepared quickly but thoroughly. Martha and Sophia gathered essential supplies in case they needed to leave in haste. Isaac and Samuel checked every weapon, position, and potential weakness in the trading post's defenses. By mid-morning, the fog had begun to lift, revealing the valley in patches as the sun burned through. Isaac stood on the porch, scanning the southern approach with a spyglass. "They're coming," he said quietly as Sophia joined him. "4 riders moving slowly. They'll be here within the hour." Sophia took a deep breath, steadying herself. "What's our plan? We face them," Isaac said simply. "Samuel and Martha will be inside with rifles at the windows. You and I will meet them out front." He turned to her, his eyes serious. "If things go badly, you run for the back trail. Martha knows where to take you." "I won't leave you," Sophia said firmly. "Sophia, no, Isaac. We face this together or not at all." Her chin lifted in determination. "I'm not the same frightened woman who appeared on your porch that night. I won't run any more." Pride and worry warred in Isaac's expression, but he finally nodded. "Together then, but stay behind me when they first arrive." The riders appeared out of the mist like specters, their horses' hooves muffled by the damp earth. Victor Blackwood led them, his fine coat and hat incongruous against the rugged landscape. The men flanking him were hard-faced strangers with the look of hired guns. Isaac and Sophia stood on the porch, presenting a united front as the riders approached. Samuel and Martha were inside as planned, positioned at windows with clear shots if needed. "Mr. Garrett," Blackwood called as they halted in the yard. "And Miss Zarelli. How convenient to find you both here." "Blackwood," Isaac acknowledged coldly. "You're a long way from Prescott." "As are you," Blackwood replied with a thin smile. "I've come to resolve our misunderstanding." "There's no misunderstanding," Sophia said, stepping forward to stand beside Isaac. "You're wanted for fraud and forgery. Soon it will be murder as well." Blackwood's smile vanished. "Unfortunate accusations based on stolen documents and a hysterical woman's imagination. I've simply come to escort my fiancée home and clear up these ridiculous charges." "She's not your fiancée," Isaac said evenly, "and the only place you're going is back to Prescott to face justice." Blackwood's eyes hardened. "I had hoped we could be reasonable. It seems I was mistaken." He nodded almost imperceptibly to his men. "Miss Zarelli will be coming with me. Anyone who interferes will regret it." "She's not going anywhere with you," Isaac replied, his hand moving subtly toward his revolver. Blackwood sighed dramatically. "Mr. Garrett, surely you realize your position. There are 4 of us, all armed. This doesn't need to end in bloodshed." "You're right about that," came Samuel's voice from the doorway behind them. He stood with a rifle trained on Blackwood. "Because you're going to turn around and ride out the same way you came in." Blackwood's calm facade cracked slightly as he registered the new threat. "This doesn't concern you, old man." "Anyone threatening guests under my roof concerns me," Samuel replied steadily. Tension crackled in the air like lightning before a storm. Sophia could see the calculation in Blackwood's eyes as he weighed his options. His men shifted uneasily, hands hovering near their weapons. "Last chance, Blackwood," Isaac warned quietly. "Ride away now or this ends badly for you." For a moment it seemed Blackwood might actually retreat, then his face contorted with rage. I will not be defeated by a backwoods rancher and a foolish girl. Everything happened at once. Blackwood reached for his pistol. Isaac shoved Sophia behind him, drawing his own weapon with practiced speed. Gunshots cracked through the morning air. Sophia caught only fragments of the chaos Isaac firing, one of Blackwood's men falling from his horse, Samuel's rifle booming from the doorway. She found herself with her own pistol in hand, though she had no memory of drawing it. Through the gun smoke, she saw Blackwood still mounted, his face a mask of hatred as he aimed directly at Isaac. Without hesitation, Sophia stepped from behind Isaac's protection and fired. Her bullet struck Blackwood in the shoulder, spinning him halfway around in the saddle. His shot went wild, and before he could recover, Isaac's next bullet caught him in the chest. Victor Blackwood fell from his horse like a marionette with cut strings. He lay motionless in the dust of the trading post yard, his blood staining the earth beneath him. The remaining two gunmen, seeing their employer fall and facing three armed opponents, quickly surrendered. Samuel and Martha bound their hands while Isaac checked Blackwood for signs of life. "He's dead," Isaac said simply, returning to Sophia's side. "Are you hurt?" She shook her head, strangely calm despite what had just occurred. "No, are you? Not a scratch." His eyes searched hers. "You saved my life." "You would have done the same for me," Sophia replied, knowing it was true. "You already have." In the aftermath, they secured the prisoners and sent for the nearest marshal to take custody of them. Samuel dispatched a rider to Prescott with news of Blackwood's death and the location of his surviving accomplices. That evening, as the trading post settled into an uneasy quiet after the day's violence, Sophia and Isaac sat alone by the fire in their cabin. The reality of what had happened and what it meant for their future was slowly sinking in. "It's over," Sophia said softly, watching the flames dance. "After all these months, it's finally over." Isaac took her hand, his thumb tracing gentle circles on her palm. "Are you all right, truly?" Sophia considered the question carefully. "I don't regret what I did," she said finally. "He would have killed you and then me. And he killed my father, I'm certain of it now." She looked up at Isaac. "But I'm not glad he's dead. I'm glad the fear is over." Isaac nodded, understanding in his eyes. "What do you want to do now? Return to Prescott?" "Eventually," Sophia decided. "I need to see things through, make sure Papa's name is cleared, that the truth about Blackwood's schemes is known." She leaned against Isaac's shoulder. "But I was thinking about what you said about land up here, about building something new." A smile slowly spread across Isaac's face. "I've been looking at a property about 10 miles west of here. 200 acres with good water and grazing. The owner's heading back east, willing to sell for a fair price." 200 acres, Sophia mused, picturing it. "Room for cattle, maybe horses too." "And a proper house," Isaac added softly, "with a wide porch for watching sunsets. And children," Sophia whispered, her cheeks flushing at her boldness. Isaac's arm tightened around her. "I like the sound of that." He turned to face her fully, taking both her hands in his. "Sophia Zarelli, I love you. I think I've loved you since the moment you stood up to Blackwood on my porch. Will you marry me? Make a life with me, whether here or in Prescott or wherever the future takes us?" Tears of joy spilled down Sophia's cheeks as she nodded. "Yes, Isaac Garrett. I will marry you. I love you too, more than I thought it was possible to love anyone." Their kiss was a promise of healing, of hope, of a future brighter than either had dared to imagine before their paths crossed on a desperate night outside Prescott. Spring came to the Colorado highlands in a rush of wildflowers and new growth. The property Isaac had mentioned, now their property, was transforming with each passing day. The foundation for their house had been laid, and the frame was rising steadily. A small herd of cattle grazed on the lush grass of their land, the beginning of what both hoped would become a prosperous ranch. They had returned to Prescott briefly during the winter to conclude their business there. Marshal Davis had been true to his word, ensuring that Charles Zarelli's name was cleared, and that the full extent of Blackwood's crimes became public knowledge. Sophia had sold her father's house and settled his affairs, saying goodbye to the place that had been her childhood home with a mixture of sadness and anticipation for the future. On a perfect May morning, with the mountains still crowned with snow but the valley bright with spring, Sophia Zarelli became Sophia Garrett in a simple ceremony at the Red Rock trading post. Martha had helped sew a wedding dress of cream-colored silk, and Samuel had built them a marriage bed of polished pine that now waited in the cabin they shared until their house was complete. Friends from nearby settlements attended, along with a few from Prescott who had made the journey north. Even Marshal Davis came, bringing news that Blackwood's surviving accomplices had been sentenced to prison for their roles in his schemes. As Isaac and Sophia stood beneath an arch of spring blossoms, exchanging vows and rings, both reflected on the strange, dangerous path that had brought them together. What had begun with terror and desperation had transformed into something beautiful, a love forged in adversity, but built to last through all the seasons of life. The celebration continued into the evening, with music and dancing under lantern light. As the night deepened and guests began to depart, Isaac led his new wife away from the gathering, toward a small rise overlooking their land. In the moonlight, they could see the outline of their half-built house, the cattle sleeping in the pasture, the silver ribbon of the stream that bisected their property. "Happy?" Isaac asked, his arms encircling Sophia from behind as they gazed at their future home. "More than I ever thought possible," she replied, leaning back against his chest. "Sometimes I think about that night running through the darkness, terrified and alone. I had no idea I was running toward the rest of my life." Isaac's lips brushed her temple. "When you appeared on my porch, I thought I was simply helping a woman in trouble. I never imagined I was meeting the love of my life." Sophia turned in his arms to face him, her eyes reflecting the starlight. "My father used to say that life's greatest gifts often come disguised as its greatest challenges." "A wise man," Isaac murmured, cradling her face in his hands. "I wish I could have known him." "He would have liked you," Sophia said with certainty. "He valued courage and honor above all things." She rose on tiptoes to kiss him softly. "As do I." 2 years later, the Garrett Ranch had become one of the most prosperous in the region. Their house, a spacious 2-story structure with the promised wide porch, stood completed on the rise overlooking their expanded herd and fields. A small orchard was taking root behind the house, and a vegetable garden flourished under Sophia's care. On a warm summer evening, Isaac returned from checking the northern pasture to find Sophia on the porch, rocking their 6-month-old son, Charles, named for her father. The baby was sleeping peacefully, his tiny hand curled around one of his mother's fingers. Isaac paused at the sight, struck anew by the blessing his life had become. Sophia looked up, her smile welcoming him home as it had every day since they had made their vows. "How are the new calves?" she asked as he climbed the steps and bent to kiss her. Then their son. "Growing fast," Isaac reported, settling into the rocker beside hers. "Another month and we can move them to the upper pasture." They sat in comfortable silence as the sun began to set, painting the western sky in brilliant hues of orange and pink. Charles stirred in his sleep, making the soft, snuffling sounds that never failed to melt his father's heart. "I had a letter from Marshal Davis today," Sophia said eventually. "He's retiring next month, thinking of settling in this region. We should invite him to visit, Isaac suggested. Might be good to have a former marshal nearby. Sophia smiled, remembering the gruff man who had helped ensure justice for her father. I already did. He says he might take us up on it once he's finished his final cases. As darkness fell and stars began to appear above their mountain home, Isaac reached for his wife's free hand, entwining their fingers. "Any regrets?" he asked softly. "About leaving Prescott, about any of it?" Sophia looked from their sleeping son to the man beside her, the man who had stood between her and harm on a desperate night, who had risked everything for a woman he barely knew because it was the right thing to do. "Not one," she answered truthfully. "Every step, even the painful ones, led me here to you, to Charles, to this life we've built." She squeezed his hand. "And I wouldn't change a single moment of it." As their son slept peacefully between them and night settled gently over their land, Isaac and Sophia Garrett welcomed the future together, a future built on courage, sacrifice, and a love that had begun with a desperate flight and a cowboy's promise. "If he wants you, he'll have to get through me first." In the end, their love had proven stronger than fear, more enduring than danger, more powerful than all the forces that had tried to keep them apart. It was a love born in the wild heart of the West, untamed, unbreakable, and true as the stars that now watched over them from the vast Colorado sky.